Hello, welcome. It's Yvonne here. So nice to have you. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that is probably a little bit personal for some of you. I'm going to talk about it so you don't have to ask the questions, but I find that it's a big barrier that stops a lot of women from even getting into hiking, actually from doing a lot of stuff. So we're just going to talk about toileting on the trail. So I know that many of our members will be watching tonight, and there is a masterclass on this. So if you've watched the masterclass or have some tips that you want to share as well as we go along, then please do. I know this is quite a personal topic, so you may not want to share your own personal story, but please rest assured, everyone, that you're not alone if you're thinking, I would like to get into hiking, or I'd like to do that particular hike, or I'd like to do that particular multi-day hike, but I'm not sure about the toilets. I'm not sure about the toileting situation. I'm not sure I could go in the bush, or I will do this. So I'm going to unpack some of that. This is not a masterclass. That is for our members inside our community. But I am going to cover some of the questions that you might think I'd love to ask, but I don't know if I could. So if you do have a question, or you're watching, well, if you do have a question, please ask. If you are watching live, please let me know where you're watching from. If this is your first time, I'd love to know if this is your first time coming across us as well. So I'm Yvonne. I'm the founder and CEO of Women's Fitness Adventures. We are now well into our 11th year of hiking on the trails. When we first started all those years ago, back in 2014, we were quite a novelty on the trail. There were not many women out there hiking, and certainly not many groups of women out there hiking. So we are still there, still doing all our hikes. And over that collective 11 years, we have taken thousands of women on day hikes and international and domestic multi-day adventures. And so we learn a lot, and we look and we listen, and we have lots of conversations as well. And perhaps, other than am I fit enough to go on a multi-day hike, the next biggest question is about toileting on the trail. So I'm going to talk about some of those common questions that we get asked about toileting on the trail. So hello, Patricia. Hello, Marie. Hello, Sharon. Hello, Alethea. Hello, Ellen. Hello, Carolyn. So nice to have all of you here live. So it's an often avoided question. We either avoid talking about it, or we actually avoid hiking because we don't know what to do about it. And that is going to the toilet on the trail. And I have, and I know our members would have heard me say this probably in our masterclass, but I have heard women say that they won't drink water. Well, actually, I know people that just go walking in their suburbs, or if they're going out for the day and they won't drink water because they don't want to use a public toilet, or they don't want to get caught out in any way or shape or form. Or they will go on a hike and they just won't drink enough till they get back to a space where there is a toilet. And then I don't know if you were watching the Australian Open the other day, and they have those trivia questions on with Andy Lee, asking what percentage of Australians do not wish to use a public toilet, and it was some ridiculous amount. Over half the population don't want to use a public toilet. So if you think about that, questions around toileting on the trail, how do I do it? What does it mean? What does it look like? Is a really valid topic of conversation. So let me check in with who else is here. Hello, Karen. Hello, Jack. Hello, Helen from Mornington Peninsula. Nice to have you here. Hello, Gwen from beautiful Port Macquarie. Hello, Kerry in very hot Victoria. I just got some alerts through from national parks about some very high fire dangers and places being closed. So I hope that you're all okay there. Hello, Leanne from Tumby Bay, and Leonie from Gympie. And a big hello to our friends and members in Northern Queensland, where there is floods happening at the moment. So I hope that you are safe and as dry as you can possibly be, and out of danger's way. So sending lots of love and hugs up to our team in North Queensland. So why is it important that we talk about toileting on the trail? Why is it important? Well, firstly, I know that there are, the biggest question I get coming across my desk is, will I be fit enough? How do I know if I'm fit enough to do a multi-day hike? But the second biggest question is generally around going to the toilet on the trail. And it's kind of skirted around. The question's not asked directly, what happens if I need to go to the toilet? It's more, I can't go because I don't want to do a bush wee. So I'm just going to throw that out to you, that I'm going to tackle this head on, and hello, Kiralee, as well, that when we go hiking, it's important that we eat and drink enough water or electrolytes to fuel our body for the purpose of what we're doing. And if we are doing that, then at some point, I know we'll sweat out water, we'll sweat out fluid, we'll lose fluid through our feet as well. But at some point, you should have to go to the toilet if you are consuming enough fluid. So that will stop a lot of women in particular from wanting to go on a hike, because they don't want to do a bush wee. How do I even do a bush wee? How do I ask the question of how do I do a bush wee? Now, I'm not going to show you how to do a bush wee, and I'm not going to tell you, the detail of how to do a bush wee. For our members, that's all in our masterclasses. But, it's not, I think sometimes we build things up in our head, or we have a narrative in our head of, I can't do that because of this. And if we say it often enough, it becomes our default, it becomes our habit, and it becomes our reason for not doing something at all. So if you're out there thinking, I know many of you watching are members, but I'd like to start hiking, or I'd like to do this longer trail, and I'm not going to do that because I may have to go and do, some toileting on the trail, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means for me. What if all these things? So let's talk about that. So some of the concerns are, well, I'll get to the trailhead and I haven't been to the toilet. It's an early morning hike and I haven't done a bowel movement, and I don't want to do that on the trail. So I'm not going to eat anything because my tummy's a little bit nervy, and I'm not going to eat anything. So when you come hiking with us, most of the time we will identify, we've kind of thought ahead of the questions of where the opportunities of public toilets or national park toilets might be. But sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes the places we go, depending how remote it is, that a bush toilet or a national park toilet is not there. So what happens then? And there's always places along the way when you're driving as well. One of the things to step back before that, and we say this for everyone who's coming on a multi-day hike with us as well, is to know what your toileting and bowel habits are, particularly in the morning. Most multi-day hikes, most day hikes will, in warmer climates, will generally start early in the morning. So know what your habits are around toileting, and start to, if you've got a hike coming up that starts at 7 a.m., and you have to drive and leave from home and be there at 7 a.m., then start to work backwards and know what habits you have, so that it makes hike day or hike week a little bit easier for you. Now, sometimes we can get a little bit nervous or a little bit anxious about that, and that plays, games with our tummy, and it might not work out how it's meant to be. But just start to have some awareness of how your bowel and bladder movements work. That's the first thing. The second thing, for your own personal safety, is to never, ever compromise on not drinking fluids, not drinking enough water for a hike, because it's one thing to not go to the toilet. It's a second thing to put yourself in an unsafe situation because you haven't drunk enough fluid to keep you hydrated, and you end up with dehydration, which is incredibly dangerous. So, we need to balance out having this feeling as comfortable as you're going to get going to the toilet in the bush, with making sure that you have enough fluid as well. And it's not always, out in the bush and out remote, just some of the trails. When you got to go, you got to go. So how do you do that? How do you also tell someone, especially if you're hiking in a group? And we always encourage, women to, I think generally we encourage women to hike in groups. How do you tell someone in the group, if you're not particularly familiar with them, that you actually need to go to the toilet? And, can they stand by without standing by, to make sure that when you come back to the track, you're not going to go in the wrong direction as well? And the other questions are around, well, what if I go off into the bush there and there's like a critter or a reptile or something like that? How do I know I'm not going to get bitten buy something? How do I do this? What about the rubbish? Do I have to pack in? Do I have to take it out? You know, and there's lots of conflicting information out there around that. And also, what about the pieces of equipment that are out there as well? So, like I said, for our members, there's a whole masterclass on this, and things keep changing all the time. In terms of how to go, I'm not going to show you how to go, but one of the things that we as women can do is get strong in our leg muscles, in our glutes, so our butt, and in our quads and hamstrings. And they're the muscles that we use for hiking that will make us stronger for hiking. And they're the muscles that you need to use when you go to toilet on the trail, because you'll need to squat down to a certain point. You can hold on to a hiking pole, you can hold on to a log or something like that for balance if you want to, and for helping yourself up off the ground. And the more you do this, the more you'll get comfortable going to the toilet on the bush. And it doesn't take in the bush. It doesn't take not on the bush, in the bush. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's just training yourself that it's okay to do this. The other concern women have that stops them getting into hiking or stops them doing trails that may be outside that frame of reference for what your bowel and bladder habits are, is that how do I do it in private? How do I can't just sneak off from a group because what if they don't know I'm missing and they keep walking on? But I don't want them standing there either. So how do I tell someone? So in our groups, as most of you who are members would know, is that we say that up front. If you need to go to the toilet, then these are the, let someone know. The group will yell out to the group, just hold up for a sec. They don't have to tell you what they're doing. But we want to make sure that if you duck off the trail, that when you come back onto the trail that you know which direction to go. So a buddy isn't going to be particularly far away. They're not going to be looking at you, but they're not going to be very far away from you at all. And let me share with you that once you get over this toileting on the trail, or you get used to toileting on the trail, it really isn't the big deal that you make it out to be, or that you could make it out to be. And you're missing out on a whole world of, great outdoors if that is one of the barriers for you. So the other, and a question just came in our Adventure Ready for Hiking group the other day on the course, that how do I know if I have to take all of my bowel waste out? And certain national parks, you are required to do that. And others will have enough toilets along the way. And then others don't have any hard and fast rules around that at the moment. But certainly, and there is that leave no trace principle as well. But certainly with any toilet paper or anything like that, you really do need to bring that out. So pack that into a little Ziploc bag and one of those perfume nappy sacks if you want to, or just something like that if there's, the smell's not going to be huge. But somewhere you do have to take it out with you. It's not as bad as you think. And I remember we went on a hike to Penalulu many, many years ago, and we were out. It was wild. It was fantastic, and camping, really remote camping. And we had to take out everything, absolutely everything, which included all of our number twos. And on the first night when they told us this, it was like 4-year-olds having this big laugh about everything. And it was, oh, okay. And you can't hold on to it for a week, right? You can't hold on to it for a day. You can't hold on for an hour. When you need to go, you need to go, because otherwise you end up with a whole lot of problems. So it took us a couple of hours to process this and laugh and carry on and joke. And then it just became, well, there's the toilet, off we go. And then we had a process for how that was carried out, because the environment was really particular about what went in and goes out over there as well. So some of the national parks will have that description on there. Some we would certainly tell you when we go to locations if we needed to carry everything out or if it's just toilet paper. And if you're going with another group, then they would tell you that as well. We will tell you on our hikes where there are toilets. So if at the meeting point there's a toilet, when we give you those details, drive to blah, blah, there is a toilet block at the start, or drive to blah, blah, there is no toilet block at the start. The closest toilet block is X, but there is one halfway. So that's important things to know and understand, so that you don't actually have to, you can start to process that when you plan to book into that hike. In terms of critters and stuff like that, obviously you're not going to, well, not obviously, because this information isn't talked about enough. But what we do is on multi-days, if you need to go to the toilet, we would suggest that you, let someone know. That person will stand, on guard, so to speak, with their back to you, and you would go off into the bush. But you wouldn't go into deep, deep bush where, and you wouldn't certainly go under a log or anything like that. So you'd really, we would give detailed explanation about where is good options to go. And, never in our 11 years of hiking have we had anyone who's come across any encounters like that. So the critters are out there, but they can hear us coming. We make a lot of, movement through the ground, so critters can hear us coming. In terms of when I was hiking in the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea, and I've done that trail twice, it is jungle. It is really, really thick jungle, and it's hard and it's rugged, and you do have to go to the toilet off the trail. It's probably better than going to the toilet at some of the camps. And what they say to you is you do not go into that bush more than 5 meters, because if you go into the jungle and you turn around, and it's the same for any, quite a lot of trails that aren't suburban, that you turn around and a lot of it looks very, very similar, and it's really easy to get lost. So that is a really big rule around toileting on the trail. So what's some practical advice? Well, there's lots of people out there wanting to sell you lots of stuff when it comes to toileting on the trail. So you can buy, the Go Girl, the Shiwi. There's probably some other brands out there as well. We've tested all those, and that was loads of fun. And if they work for you, well and good. The reality is that you, at some point with those, still need to pull your pants down to have a wee. So if you still need to do that and then put a piece of apparatus, there, then you may as well just squat and do a wee. That's my view, and that was the view of the few of us that tested it on the overland track a couple of years ago in winter, because we were cold and we thought, okay, we don't really want to do that, but we tested it and we decided that it was better just to do a squat and off we go. There are those cloths as well that you can use that hang on the back of your backpack instead of toilet paper. That's a personal preference. I personally don't recommend them. It would take a lot of UV sunlight to break down the bacteria on there, but that is an individual thing. That's just my personal view. You can, as I said, have a little toilet kit. So have a little portable plastic lightweight shovel and some toilet roll and some hand sanitizer. You can have what we did for New Guinea, our toilet roll that has a shoelace tied through it, so it's on your neck, so that you don't have to put it down on the ground in either the bush or in bush toilets. And in New Guinea, when we were going to the toilet, everybody knew what we were doing because we had the toilet roll around our neck. But you can then put your toilet paper into, if there's nowhere to dispose of it, into little Ziploc bags, and then just dispose of that as you would normally would at the end of the day. But as I said, it's really, really important to, when you're going on a hike, is, staying hydrated takes priority over going to the toilet. So you need to drink as you normally would if you had a toilet, 5 meters from you, or you're in an office or you're in your home, because dehydration is so much more significant or significantly bad for your safety, or such a safety risk, than going to the toilet is. So that's really important. But the point of the whole chat today is to try and overcome some of that fear of, I'm not going to even get into hiking because I can't go to the toilet on the trail. And trust me, it's not as bad as you think, and it just takes practice. And certainly from our perspective, every single woman who goes on hikes, and if you're one of our members and you're watching, please, chime in and share that it's not as bad as you think. And we're all thinking the same thing. Oh, at some point, if I have to go to the toilet, what will people think? What will people say? It's like we all have to go to the toilet. It's all part of what we do. So as our community, we're pretty much well versed. Oh yeah, such and such. Yep. No big deal. No one even notices in the end. So that's really important. So I'm sharing this also with you today because I went to the physio and she was asking me what I did, and she said, well, what do I do when I go on a hike? What's toileting like when I'm on a hike? And I said, oh, yeah, not a problem. Just go if I need to. And she said, I said, but you wouldn't believe that going to the toilet is the number one reason, or number two reason other than fitness, that women will not start or continue with hiking is because they have to go to the toilet on the trail. And she said, no, I absolutely believe you. She was a physio of my age. She said, I absolutely believe you. That is what she hears as well. So, and she was sharing a bit more than you need to know, she was a pelvic floor physiotherapist. So she sees it literally from that perspective that a lot of women won't do outdoor in nature things because we are paranoid about going to the toilet. So Kerry says here, the older I get and the more I hike, toileting on the trail is a non-event. Toileting, thank you so much for sharing that as well, Kerry. Toileting on the trail is just part of being out on a hike. And I think the benefits of hiking far outweigh, it's not an inconvenience having to go to the toilet. We should be grateful we can go to the toilet. But that initial feeling of being uncomfortable with, how do I do this? What do I do? One of our newest members she was just getting into hiking and she watched our masterclass of toileting on the trail. And she said, I did it. I just did it. I listened to the masterclass. I figured it out. I went hiking. She was hiking on her own. And she said, I just figured out how to go to the toilet. She said, it wasn't as hard as I thought after all. So we can use those things to stop us, and or we can use the information I'm sharing with you today to think, okay, well, that's one excuse that I can, or one reason, or one barrier that doesn't have to be there anymore. And you don't have to start with, an all day, 5 or 6 hour. You can just say, look, I'm going to go for a 2 or 3 hour hike that I haven't done before, or I haven't been with those people before. And if those nerves start to kick in, knowing your toileting habits ahead of time, if the nerves start to kick in, it's just all this constant feedback for our body and learning about our body so that we know, okay, well, if I'm not drinking enough water, I'm going to get a headache. And if I'm starting to get a headache, do I need a hydrolyte? And if I have a hydrolyte and I've still got a headache, does that mean I've drunk enough water? Have I actually been to the toilet since I've been on the trail? No. What does my water situation look like? Oh, I've drunk all of it, or I haven't drunk any of it. It's really just this continuous feedback loop to us. But going to the toilet is just on the trail is part of hiking, and it's not a biggie. Louise says, I used to worry. Thank you, Louise. Now just tell others I'm going off to the loo, and off I go. I have Ziploc bags for waste. It's not an issue. So thank you for sharing that too, Louise, because I know that sometimes these things that we don't know about, and you can Google toileting on the trail, but no one from that I've seen from a woman's perspective is actually telling you this stuff without an intention of selling you some gadget or some piece of equipment. Alethea says, I also think the GU electrolytes minimize the need for me to, unlike the Hydrolite brand. Not sure why, I've just noticed. Otherwise, when you got to go, you got to go. Yeah, the GU electrolytes. There's a whole lot of brands of electrolytes out there as well. And if you're watching and you think, what are electrolytes? Just drop a comment in here and we can share those. But putting that some of those minerals back into us that we've lost when we sweat as well. Now, some people don't go to the toilet a lot normally anyway. So, over the course of a hike, I would expect about 80% of people would at some point need to go. 80% of women in our group certainly would need to go to the toilet. But holding on or holding out till you get back to the car is also not an option either, because the dehydration damage or the internal holding on process is not very good for you. That has already started to play out. So it is just toileting is a normal part of hiking on the trail. And I was just thinking about some conversations we had this morning, which I can't share on here, just about other, as women, we all get it. We're all really similar. And if we think that, well, the toileting on the trail only applies to me and I can't because of this and this and this, trust me, someone will have had a similar experience or a similar life stage or know something about what you're going through. We are all much more similar than we think. And when we, just, and if Bernadette's watching, just let go and let ourselves enjoy the ability to be outside and be hiking with other people and having great conversations and letting Mother Nature do her job. And the toileting is just part of that. It makes such a difference. So hopefully I have enlightened. I know our members are all over this. But for those watching who aren't members or at whatever point you're watching, I'm thinking you'd love to get into hiking, but this is one of the things that has worried you the most. Please don't worry. Please know that it's normal, that everyone has to do it, and you are missing out on some incredible moments of joy if you continue to let this be a barrier to you. So if you would like further information about that for our members, you can go and watch our or rewatch our Toileting on the Trail Masterclass. And for anyone who's not watching, who's not a member or would like more information on this topic, just drop us a hello in the chat and we can help you out further with that. So just a couple of announcements to make. We do have a New South Wales workshop that has just dropped onto our website. So you can, that's for August, a 2-day workshop if you're interested in that. That was my public service announcement. And I'm just going to finish on this one from Leanne. I was once a warrior, warrior, not warrior. You are a warrior. But after going on some hikes with Women's Fitness Adventures, no one notices. So there you go. So on that note, thank you for joining me. I hope you found this helpful. Would love your feedback. So please drop some comments below. And I look forward to seeing you next week, coming to you from New Zealand. So talk to you then. Bye.